What an absolute treat we have here today. Another superstar guest. It's George Mcheileh. He's one of the great left backs I've ever played with, but most importantly, one of the best leaders I've ever played under, and a great bloke. So I'm really glad to have you today. Thanks for coming, Georgie.
Thanks for having me, Dad. I think it's a really great initiative and a really great project that you put together, and just happy to be involved.
Thanks, mate. You've been around the traps for a while now. I'm not calling you old, but you've certainly been around. What's your experience with vulnerability and openness at football clubs?
I think going through the ranks and kind of getting older through football, you see a lot. And I think as I've gotten older, I've had the privilege of kind of setting or helping set a culture in a club. But I think, football has some really amazing moments and some really terrible moments, but I guess that's the beauty of the game. For me, it was more out of football, what football has actually changed in terms of personality, in terms of kind of approaching things, communication, my work and social life, and just reflecting on playing and just experiences, really.
Yeah, I know that I feel like that I kind of grew up in football in a way, and a lot of what I saw above me were guys who were always jovial, always having a great time. And I kind of wanted to be like that in a way. And the result of that for me, I kind of felt that I learned to bottle up my emotions a little bit, and not express myself emotionally as much as I'd like to. What's been your experience with that? Do you feel like you've had a similar view on how you've grown up in football, and what sort of implications has that had for your personal life off the pitch as well?
Yeah, another interesting one. So a lot of people that know me, I try and be as sort of bubbly as I can, but I am a pretty quiet guy naturally. And yeah, going through football, taking up leadership roles, you really have to kind of be vocal, and you're seen as this person who's got this big enigma, and you're always going to be out there regardless, just yelling and showing that you're there and you're present. Because if you're not, people around you, they all drop off. But for me, I think in regards to my social life, you get to football and you're told that you've just got to leave everything at the door, and you've got to pretty much just switch everything from your outside life and just focus on football, and get into drills and just be at your top in terms of performance. And I've found that quite hard because it sort of reflects my emotional state, definitely reflects on, how I am performing and how I'm feeling, and just my state of mind. I'm wanting to be on the pitch. So I know, like, if I've had a really hard day at work and in some semi-professional football, most of us have day jobs, full-time jobs, and a lot of guys are studying. So there's a lot of stress in life. And you're kind of getting to the field, and, if you've had a bad day, you've got all these things, I could have done this at work differently. I could have done that differently. My parents are sick, or, all that kind of sort of stuff. And I've found it hard to kind of just suppress everything. And that's sort of reflected in what I found in my actual relationship with girlfriends, in terms of showing vulnerability, and emotion when it comes to those deep and meaningful conversations. So I kind of freeze when it comes to those conversations, where it just, I just don't know how to express what I'm feeling because I'm scared to show that. And I feel like, I didn't know that was a thing. And until speaking to other people about it and realizing that, other people go through it, that's kind of my experiences in terms of vulnerability in football.
Yeah, I think that a lot of men and a lot of footballers will listen to that and be like, oh, I'm so glad that other people experience that too. And I suspect that a lot of partners of those people also feel the same way. Um, I know that I've certainly gone through a lot of growth and have a lot more growing to do when it comes to expressing my emotions in the moment. I feel like once I've processed things and gotten to grips with how I'm feeling, I can be really good at having those conversations. But in the moment, exactly like you've said, I just freeze up. And I think that part of that is learned in football, where we're not taught to express ourselves in the moment emotionally, because we are told to leave our vulnerabilities at home and we have to be at that peak performance all the time. Um, and I've certainly seen that in a lot of football guys that I know. Do you think that football, we've spoken about our personal lives, do you think that football clubs and actual performance levels can be improved by being more open and addressing people's challenges at home?
Yeah, look, I think if we look at sort of, we always from a semi-professional level look at the elite level and the top levels of football, and they've all got sort of psychologists and counselling and all that sort of stuff, and it's a really big part of the game, and you know it's all got to do with arousal levels and being in a really good sort of flow in terms of emotional state. So I think, yeah, in terms of it all comes down to funding, but it can be a little bit more simpler than that. So I know in terms of finances, most clubs won't be able to afford psychologists or counsellors, but something as simple as saying to one of your teammates, look, we've had a pretty rubbish day. And then rather than just sort of closing off the conversation, maybe just open it up into, okay, yeah, tell me about it, what's going on. Yeah, maybe, you've experienced the same sort of thing and you can kind of share your experiences from that. So similar to the things that you and Lonnie were talking about. So I think that would be, really important. And I think in terms of a culture in a club, a lot of the best performing teams, look at Liverpool, they look like they have this awesome bond. Their coach is involved.
Yeah.
And I think if you're looking at that top level, that really dictates what we do in the leagues below.
Yeah, and it's those connections that can really improve performance for me, because I've played alongside guys like you and Yoni, who are close mates, and Alon, and I feel like I want to give extra because I really care about them, and not just in a football way, but in a really deep friendship way. And I think that,
Yeah.
even you and I having this conversation, when we first had it, I felt more connected to you as a friend because we had opened up about something that we hadn't really spoken about too much before. And we actually shared it in common, and knowing that I can trust you and you can trust me is a really powerful thing for performance, but more for life. And I know that I'm really keen to, when my career wraps up, to have a lot of lifelong friends to show for it. That's kind of been a goal that's opened up as I've gotten older and started putting things in perspective a little bit more. And I think by being more open, that can be achieved at a higher level. But mate, you've always been someone who leads from the front and sets the tone. And I think our culture at Brunswick has been really special in large part because of you. Have you ever felt stressed out or anxious by the responsibility of how much your leadership is relied upon for the entire club and entire team?
It's another great question. And again, I think, I haven't really sort of reflected back on those sorts of things. And it's hard because, you come into a club, and I've probably been there about sort of 5 years now. And, when I first got there, it was a club that, was copying 100 goals a season, finishing, last place. And then the year that I've got there, the team was doing pretty well, finished mid-table, and just starting to shift a bit of culture. And then with the new coach in Rick and just bringing in more like-minded people, and just changing things, like little things around the club. In terms of sort of the leadership stuff on the field, you just kind of, I think you just sort of grow into it, because all the older guys are starting to retire. And then I think for me, I sort of fell into, okay, now you're the skipper, just go on and lead the guys. And, I didn't really know what to do. So I don't know, I just try to do my best, try to be as vocal as I can, because I'm not really that sort of person. And then, having people like you around, and who's a little bit more naturally vocal, and is really good in the change rooms and can, be really open and start conversations where, a lot of the times you walk into a change room and it's dead, and then you just get this vibe that, okay, today's not really going to happen. We're not really going to go out there and perform well, because it just feels like kind of like a morgue, and that's the term that we normally use. But I think, just in reflecting now, I think I've grown a lot as a person, and as a player. And I think I play my best football when I'm leading, in the sense that, I'm wanting the ball, I'm loud, I'm involved, and I'm not shying away from the challenge. And then just showing that to my teammates, I think they can kind of get a bit of a, okay, George is up for this. I also want to get up for this. I want to win this game. And I think we've got a pretty good squad, in the sense that there's no real sort of egos, and everyone wants the same thing. Everyone wants to win. So it would have really been an interesting sort of season had it come through. But
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah. I know that I feel really lucky to have had a leader like you to look up to, because I think leadership can sometimes be really stressful. It's like a big weight on people's shoulders sometimes. But the way you've taken it in your stride, and I've seen you grow a lot as a person, and as a player, to be able to see that from someone else is really important for someone who, like, I obviously really love leadership, but it is a big task, and it's a lot of responsibility. So thanks for always being a great role model for me, but also for just being a ripping bloke and a great mate. And thanks for coming on, Georgie.
Thanks for having me. Like I said, I think if only one person gets something out of this, and just I've had the same sort of experience, then I think you've done an amazing job. And like I said, it's an amazing project, and I think it's an issue that we don't really pay enough attention to. So good on you, man.
Thanks, Georgie. Thanks for coming.
No worries. Cheers, mate.